Hi there. This week in Artificially Informed, we've got all kinds of fun stuff. AI is getting smarter, it's getting richer, and in my humble opinion, it is getting way more out of control than ever before. Anthropic is stopping AI models from going into the market. Power companies are springing up in Southern Ohio, and investors are betting big on a robot future. We're going to talk about all this and more on this week's edition of Artificially Informed. I'm your host, Logan Edmonds, CEO of TTS Cyber. Sorry. Good. Sorry about that. I got all distracted. I'm turning off all the little prompts on my screen so they don't ping me and make the little ADHD brain go, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that?
I'm just moving it fast forward mode myself. So
yeah, that's fair. So I've gone ahead and posted a link in the comment of YouTube, and I'm going to go ahead and update our other socials, but we are going to be talking about a crazy week. Honestly, a lot of this stuff slipped by me because of how busy I've been this week. And then when I got into the stories in preparation for this call, I was like, what the heck? How does the world of AI get more scary? Like, I know I should know better. I know I tell people I should know better, but I look at this and I go and I say, what's the Russian saying? And yet somehow it got worse, right? Like it does feel that way a lot with AI. Like, and somehow against all odds, it got worse. Let's talk about our first and leading story this week. Anthropic. They have been in the news a lot lately. And essentially the headline says it all. The AI that hacks better than the hackers themselves hack. I mean, it's funny, but at the same time, it's really not. So Patrick, I know you're deep on this story. Go ahead, give us the preface here.
Yeah. So this is kind of this is the culmination of what we've been talking about for weeks. It came up, finally they released Mythos. They have this project called Project Glasswing, where they want to work now. Anthropic wants to work with all these major companies, Amazon, the banks, to take what they've been finding through their new AI model Mythos and close these vulnerabilities, figure out how to address this, because it found, when they turned it on, it found thousands of vulnerabilities, and not just finding of vulnerabilities, but 3/4 of them are exploitable, usable for attackers to take advantage of.
So without making our audience's eyes glaze over, because vulnerabilities are one of those super technical things that if we start talking about too much as technology people, people will go, oh, because it is kind of boring. And when you get into the nuts and bolts, I'm not going to make any illusions about that. But one of the things that people need to understand with vulnerability management is it's a giant game of cat and mouse, right? It really is. The attackers are constantly surfacing, seeing new exploits and software that everyone uses, and the people who run these software platforms, Microsoft, Google, all these big companies, they're constantly trying to put out patches to fix the holes the attackers found. And then us, as the operations technology experts for small businesses and large businesses, we're trying to apply those fixes faster than the attackers can use them. And so what I see is the core problem here is Anthropic made it ridiculously easy to find these vulnerabilities at scale in a way that previously has never been possible. But the opposite's not true. We do not have a way to remediate these vulnerabilities in an automated fashion and at scale at the same pace.
Yeah.
If they let this out in the wild, attackers are going to go nuts on this, and we won't be able to stop them. That was what I read on this.
Yep. Yeah, and that's always been the battle from the dawn of the information age is how fast do you disclose something? People want to know about it right away, but if you aren't ready to respond, you don't want the bad guys to know how to use it because they're going to jump on it. As soon as they have a way to make money, they're jumping on it.
And this is one of those things where the economies of scale, I mean, that is the number one driver of what everything in cybersecurity revolves around, right? Can we defend at scale and can we attack at scale? And sadly, this lines up with the trend I'm seeing, which is AI predominantly benefits attackers way more than it benefits defenders when it comes to enabling economies of scale. It just does. Takes us time. I don't know. I know Anthropic is saying so let's give context here. Anthropic said, we're going to limit access to this thing. We're going to slow walk it because it's so powerful, right? They're not canceling it, not shutting it down, but they're giving it to a handful of major tech companies and cybersecurity organizations and saying, try to figure out how to, contain the damage before we let this go live, right? The problem is that's a very short-term fix.
Right.
Vulnerabilities aren't all out there waiting to be found. Like, they're every day, new batches are getting released, new batches are identified. Like, even if they could fix all the existing vulnerabilities on the market tomorrow, give it a few weeks and you'll have a fresh couple billion to work with. Like, that's how this works. So I'm kind of terrified about this thing. I don't see a way to combat that long term.
Yeah. And if you really take it into the tinfoil hat side, and it's not really that tinfoil hat, they're the first ones to release this. Just like running the 8-minute mile was thought to never be done. And then one person did it. And then right behind that one person, a whole bunch of people ran the 8-minute mile.
Mm-hmm.
Anthropic's just developed this. It's not going to be long before others do. And they're not going to all handle this the same way.
This is what we've been talking about for the AI oracles for the longest time. This is the dark future, right? Like, once they get into competition, there is no one player that can stop this train in terms of that. And I do agree with that, right? Like, even Anthropic and we talked about this on our last week's podcast. They seem to behave, at least on the surface, more with some concerns toward ethical guidelines than some of their competitors do. But even if they said, yeah, for ethical reasons, we can't release this ever, OpenAI in the next 6 months will be right behind them, right? Gemini will be right behind them. Perplexity, you mentioned the AI company, DeepSeek. I mean, they're all over the place. Someone's going to do this. And like anything on the internet, once it's out there, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle.
Yep.
On that bet, because we can't put the genie back in the bottle, I went to a talk about this last night. Oddly enough, I went to the Ohio Venture Pipeline talk, and this was all the rage, right? Investors are betting huge on a robot future. To give you context, the headline for this week was "Investors bet big on robot future. Call us old-fashioned, but when something pulls in $300 billion in a single quarter, we start paying attention, and so should you." So, in essence, I'll TLDR this. In Q1 of 2026, venture funding, which is like the people investing in AI, the venture capitalists, the private equity, they had an unprecedented $300 billion worth of investment across 6,000 startups. That is a huge amount of capital for a relatively small pool of small companies.
Yep.
That's a quarter.
Feed the monster. That's the answer.
3 months. In 3 months, someone threw $300 billion throughout. Like, this is insane. I like our animation department this week. They're giving some good ideas. Like, forget railroad magnets. The AI bosses are coming, right? Like, so what we're seeing right now, a handful of companies, however, we're the ones that dominated the action. So OpenAI announced, I think it was $122 billion raise. Anthropic, XAI, Waymo, all names that we understand. They're leading this, but they're also they pulled in about 65% of that, so $188 billion. That being said, AI startups captured 80% of all investment in the country right now. 80% of all venture dollars on that scale are going to AI companies, and it does signal it's a sharp concentration in the capital and where you can find it. If you're doing a non-AI company startup in this day and age, and you need funding to get off the ground, that was one of the themes we talked about last night at that dinner. It's kind of hard right now. Like, is there opportunities out there? Absolutely, but not as easy to find as they were 5 years ago.
And you're more financial savvy than I am, but when I see unicorn valuations jumping to 900 billion, that means like these are companies that they're not producing stuff worth this much. They don't have the revenues for this much. This is all anticipated.
This is the valuation, right? Like the pie in this, and valuation's a fun number to always talk about because it is a bit of a pie in the sky thing. But it's like, if we were to sell tomorrow, someone want to buy us, we think our overall value with both our current state and our future state, that's the funny part of valuation. What we're gonna have in the future is worth this much money. That being said, about 83% of global funding is coming to the United States right now. This is the country to be if you want to do AI investment. If you want to get investment for your AI startup, United States is the lion's share. However, we are seeing capital move to more what we call late stage deals, meaning companies that are already established, have trajectories. This is their third, fourth, fifth round of fundings. less and less, and we talked about this last night, is going to the early stage guys. It's getting really hard for a lot of people who these players that control the money of who gets the investments to justify, and less of them are willing to take the risk of betting on these smaller guys. And that does have long-term ramifications. That's where innovation comes from. That's where we find these products, services, and goods that we built our lives on. So, last thing on this article is talking about is while the investment's unreal, the exit they're a little clogged up. When's the last time you heard about a company going public?
I not really lately.
It's been a few years,
Hear-
right? Like it's
Hear
very,
echoes of it and hopes.
but you hear about these big companies going public. OpenAI wants to do an IPO. SpaceX is talking about doing a multi-trillion-dollar IPO. Like that is the expectations for the exits now, and that a lot of money coming in, not a clear path of how it's going to get back out, because that's the cycle, right? These venture capital guys, they operate on a 10-year timeline. Money in, 10 years later, I'm going to get my returns back out. Seeing the money going in, how it's going to come back out, we'll see. All right, moving on. I like this week's story of our Inside the Stack. So Inside the Stack is the day our security stack started arguing with itself. I'm gonna ask you a pointed question, Patrick. As a cybersecurity practitioner and as someone who's implemented a robust cybersecurity stack, have you seen other stacks that makes no sense because they're literally fighting each other and the security program program combats itself?
Yeah, we talk about layers in our industry. Layers are supposed to be one on top of each other, not all squished together. So yeah, I mean, I've seen sometimes people just go overkill, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
I've seen it where they'll invest tons of money into some kind of program, but the program is not optimized and it's patchwork. It's Swiss cheesy, and even parts of it, like this thing indicates, like sometimes you see components of the layers we're talking about in a security stack will fight each other and overall reduce the entire integrity of the entire posture. Your cybersecurity is as much about strategy, if not more so, than the tools that fulfill that strategy. And a lot of players in the market right now just sell you a bunch of tools with very little strategy. If you're in that position where you feel like, hey, I need to start taking my cybersecurity to the next level, or hey, I'm not comfortable with my current provider. I don't feel very protected. I see some of the cracks, right? We're offering a free cyber strategy session today, and you can get the link in the comments. It'll be posting in the next minute or two. So yeah, check us out. Hit us up. You can do a free cyber strategy session to get a second opinion. Hey, is this actually legit? Am I good? Or is there cracks I need to know about? Okay. So moving on from there. Did you like this article? I like this article.
Yeah, this gives me some hope, and with all the other stories going on.
You say it gives you some hope, but it gave me some Fox in the Henhouse kind of vibes too, to be honest. So the context here is OpenAI has been releasing a lot of public strategy for hopefully people in the powers that be to start considering, hey, how do we manage the new world of AI we're moving into, right? How do we, what is it like? Because AI, I would say at this point we are past it's going to cause disruption. It is actively causing disruption both in job markets and how we live and how we research and how we get data. And kids, ChatGPT, they've gotten so ubiquitous with using AI tools like ChatGPT. They don't even call it ChatGPT. It's just chat. That was one thing I was taught by and I'm like 6 months behind because that's been a thing for a while, but that's what you call it. Chat. It's chat, and it tells you what you do. We're seeing more and more stories of the reliance these kids are putting in there, right? And also too, there is materials that are this stuff is not fun to talk about. AI can be used to abuse children is the best way to frame it. Yeah. And we do, and it's not a comfortable topic. It's an ugly topic, but it is happening. And to say it's not is to bury our heads in the sand. So OpenAI put out some reflective materials of, hey, this is what we can do. It felt like, I don't know, man. It felt a little bit like a feel-good marketing piece more than an actual action plan to me as I went through it. A A lot of it is, hey, we're going to rely on these third party providers that or third party child safety organizations to input into the plan. And that was my take. It sounds like you had a bit more of a rosy view, though. What was your take?
Well, it's common sense isn't so common anymore. So, in a sense, they are passing the buck, but the ultimate responsibility for children lies on their parents, and that is, I think we touched on it before a little bit with that story in Europe. It's hard. I won't paint a naive picture that parents who don't understand. Most people don't understand AI's impact on youth and what can happen to their kids. So it's, you are responsible for your children's upbringing, but at the same time, there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to this stuff. So
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's hard, and this is one of those things where it's not as upbeat, but it is something that we need to talk about. In a future where online safety for children matters, where they're going to develop how they view the world, the information of where they learn about the world, and more importantly, I mean, specifically in the realm of AI, right? Like, I do worry about the blurring lines of reality in this day and age. I really do.
Mm.
My kids live in an interconnected world that I did not grow up in, and the way they define what is virtual and what is real in their minds and in an unspoken, unverbalized way, I can already tell is completely different than how I do. Right? It's just based on the context that they're growing up. There's just those worlds are not nearly as delineated as they are for those of us who grew up in a pre-internet, pre-interconnected, pre-smartphone, pre-AI age.
Oh yeah. Yep. I would agree 100% on that.
Well, moving on to a more optimistic topic. Let's go ahead and talk about Gemma 4. I like that SLMs and smaller, more efficient models are starting to get more of headlines nowadays, right? We talk about these big providers and these big, large language models and these big, heavy duty, energy focused, AI powers. We need to start talking about a future that is more efficient when it comes to AI, because the current energy and the current hardware demands of what we're going for in these data centers do not make sense. And this is kind of cool. I was seeing this, right? Like, this is like a new model. It's more efficient. It can run on phones. I mean, it's literally efficient enough. It can run on phones for processing power. And yeah, it does decent. Over 140 languages, can do basic code generation, vision, and audio inputs. What was your thoughts? I was super excited about this.
Yeah, I kind of wish this is the way the developments just went, period. When developers and governments saw what kind of power demands, real estate demands these massive data centers were going to require, why didn't they all just go, oh, you know what, let's just focus this way?
So from the you mentioned earlier, I stayed in tune with the financial side of things, and I will say this is not technical people saying this is financial people. There is a real movement of people, and they're all about bets, right? We're trying to predict the future, and we're betting on the future. There is a significant bet on it's not the technology that'll kill the current AI structures that we have, it is the energy consumption. It's not sustainable. Yeah. And AI, these build outs, they're very expensive. The energy requirements are inordinate. We do not have the power yet, production, to support this. And it might not be the technology that ends up changing how AI is being deployed, or it might just be there's not enough energy, right? We might see AI, quote unquote, eat itself because it can't function the way it's structured right now. And when I look at that potential future, I see stuff like this and saying, if that happens, this is where we're going to go. AI is not going anywhere, but we're going to start seeing a much more energy efficient, much more localized, much more decentralized is the word I guess I'm working for there, form of AI. And whether or not we'll end up there, I mean, there's a lot of variables that we can't predict, but I do see it. And honestly, there's just use cases that make sense. I don't need to pay Anthropic all their office coke and fees and all that fun stuff if I have a very unique use case. SLMs and efficient models that are open source, they're gonna keep everyone honest at the very least.
Yep.
Okay. Well, speaking of power, this one was kind of cool because Patrick, you know where I live, right?
Yep.
I live in a cornfield in the middle of Ohio, and guess what this week's story is about? AI is getting charged up in Southern Ohio. So yeah, if you and I like the headline. Our editorial team's getting better at their jokes. If you thought your phone needed a lot of charging, wait till you meet AI. The U.S. Department of Energy and Department of Commerce have teamed up with SoftBank and ADP Ohio to build a massive energy and data hub in Southern Ohio. This project includes 10 gigawatts of new power, which is significant generation.
Crazy.
And a matching 10 gigawatt data center campus. So like, we'll build the power and then we'll immediately have the data center. I was like, okay, cool. But it's backed by tens of billions in investment, and much of it is tied to the US Japan trade agreements, hence SoftBank being involved. I know guys that work for AEP. The power demands they're being put under, and I'm here in Ohio, so AEP is one of the big power players. The expectations for these data centers, we have data centers being built out everywhere. The energy requirements, they are insane. We need every little bit of power we can get. Otherwise, I mean, already our energy bills are climbing ridiculously out of control, in my opinion. I've already had that hit me. So
yeah,
this is only good news for me. We need more power no matter where the future goes. And an abundance of energy is not a bad thing. It's a good infrastructure thing. That's all I'll put it that way. We will find a use for this energy no matter what ends up
playing. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's gonna drive benefits for everybody. Ohio's gonna glow.
I was laughing about it. Like I said, I'm getting happy with the editorial team and some of the cartoons they're coming with. I like that, like the little tractor guy. Like, look at this. This made me laugh and chuckle a little bit. Little guy in a tractor with a bunch of lightning bolts in this thing. Whee! But yeah,
the astronauts coming back from the moon wearing sunglasses that they look at Ohio showing.
I mean, honestly, we look at the Department of Energy, and I like the ending, right? Like, it turns out the real power move was, well, power. And that's true, right? Like energy, we are moving back into a world where I do think energy is going to be the number one constraint and number one dictator of the future we're moving into. I mean, energy dictates industrials, it dictates compute, it dictates manufacturing. I mean, everything is based on energy, and we've known this for 60 years now, right? Like ever since the Iran, Iran controversy. Contra Iran, I think is what it was, like back in the early 70s. We've known we've had energy moves the world. This is both good, but also I do wonder about sustainability of building all this power out just to immediately attach to a data center. There's a conversation needs to happen around our infrastructure that transmits the power.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That's the other part. I was like, I like this, but the grid is kind of old in Ohio. We've actually done a semi-decent job of maintaining it compared to the rest of the country, but it's 10 gigawatts. For those of you who have no idea what that means, go Google that. Seriously, you'll start seeing why we're having like. What is the Star Wars, the Revenge of the Sith? Unlimited power. That's what I thought of right there. Palpatine's lightning.
Well, and in kind of tying back to one of the other previous stories as you were mentioning, does AI survive this financial, if it doesn't have financial returns, what saves AI? And one of the thoughts that I've mentioned is it either downscales like our previous story, or it innovates. Maybe it solves its own problem by innovating new energy methods, fusion power or something like that. And all of a sudden we don't have a problem. We can create unlimited power for cheap.
I mean, that is going to be the number one. So I mean, history doesn't repeat, but definitely rhymes, right? And so one of the things, we're going to circle back to the AI eating itself and sort of the history and the people betting on that. Well, every major industrial build out over the last century had a period of overinvestment. A monetization didn't appear as quickly as the investment thought it would. And then there was a scale back, and then the monetization caught up over time, right? Like that is how that worked. The railroad, telecom, cars, the internet build out, the .com, and all this stuff that over the last century, that's how it's played out. The way, and this is a personal opinion, I see this playing out as one of two things. Either we make huge strides in innovation, and there are people trying to do that. I've seen everything from portable nuclear generators to, people who are really trying to figure out how to optimize the existing grid of what we have and revolutionize specifically in the area of efficiency, right? Of transmitting power. And all that's all well and good. The other side of this I see is getting more efficient, right? Like figuring out how to run this stuff on a much more less resources and allow it to scale in a more sustainable manner. I suspect we're probably going to end up somewhere in the middle of both as this goes forward. That's where the timeline, I couldn't tell you. How the journey, how we get there, I couldn't tell you. I suspect the end result will be somewhere in the middle of those two things. Which
I agree.
is the best, I think is also the best case scenario for us.
Yeah.
We can I cannot stress this enough that nothing good comes out of AI except this is that if we can make energy more cheaper and more abundant, everyone is better off for that. World is built on energy, guys. It has been for over a century now.
Yes. Yep.
We should all be rooting for that outcome. More energy is good. People live longer. They're healthier. There's more economic opportunity. Like all these things are stemming from one place, energy. So, okay. Well, that was a nice little tangent. And I'm glad we filled out the rest of the half hour. Honestly, it's still very much the speed of things, man. That is something that we're not seeing any kind of slowdown here on that. I love that we're innovating, but I am, I'm watching like everyone else, right? Like I'm not a betting man enough. I don't have enough risk appetite to put a bet on where this is going to end, but I am enjoying watching the ride. How about you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel better being on the front end of this and seeing everything that's going on rather than being caught by surprise. So I'm glad we're here to kind of help everybody else because you don't want to be caught by surprise on this. And it is moving fast. We are ultimately all on the same boat. I'll enjoy the ride.
Yep. Okay. And I'm glad you last thing I'll say, it was nice not to have a story about Iran in the news for one time in the last 2 months.
Stop it.
Dang it. Okay. It's going to come back. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in once again. I'm Logan Edmonds. I'm CEO of TTS Cyber.
Patrick Curta with Your Network Security.
Stay safe out there, everybody. And as always, stay in touch. Sign up for our newsletter in the comments if you want to read about more of what's going on in the world in a way that is 7 minutes or less per week. Take care.